Have you ever found yourself holding on to something or someone far longer than you should have? Maybe it's because you believed things would change, that the circumstances would somehow shift in your favor. Maybe it's because you felt a sense of loyalty, a deep connection, or a history that was hard to walk away from. You convinced yourself that this relationship, this bond, had more potential than what you were currently experiencing. You looked past the disappointments, ignored the warning signs, and kept telling yourself that with just a little more time, things would get better. But as time dragged on, it didn't get better, did it? Instead, you found yourself carrying more weight, emotional baggage that wasn't even yours to bear. You became the person who listened to their problems, who picked up the pieces of their broken promises, who held everything together while they drifted through life, often oblivious to how their actions were affecting you. And you kept doing it because you are patient, because you believe in people. You believe that everyone deserves a second chance, that everyone has the capacity to grow, to change, to become the best version of themselves. So you waited. You waited for that transformation, that moment when they would wake up and finally realize the value you brought into their life. You waited for the day they would treat you with the same care and respect you showed them. And in that waiting, you convinced yourself that your patience was the key. It became a kind of virtue, something you could hold on to when the weight of it all became too much. Just be patient, you told yourself. They'll come around. They'll understand. They'll change. But they didn't, did they? Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and yet nothing shifted. You started to realize that you were the only one trying. You were the only one holding on. You kept making sacrifices, kept bending over backward, while they continued to take and take, never really giving in return. They kept promising you things, promises of change, promises of love, promises of a better future together. But those promises were hollow. They were nothing more than words meant to keep you on the hook, to keep you waiting just a little longer. And so, the burden grew heavier. You started to feel the weight of it pressing down on you. It wasn't just the emotional weight either. It was the mental strain of constantly trying to figure out what you were doing wrong, why they weren't changing, why they couldn't see how much you were giving them. You questioned yourself, doubted your worth, and wondered if you were asking for too much. But deep down, you knew you weren't. You knew that what you were asking for, respect, love, commitment, were the bare minimums. Yet, here you were, carrying the weight of their indifference, their lack of effort, their inability to rise to your level. The truth is, they weren't going to change. They weren't going to wake up one day and suddenly become the person you needed them to be. And that realization, as painful as it was, started to settle in. You could no longer ignore the fact that your patience wasn't helping the situation. It was prolonging your own suffering. Every day you waited, hoping for change, was another day you put your own happiness, your own growth, on hold. You gave them everything, didn't you? You showed up for them in ways they never showed up for you. You listened to them, supported them, loved them through their struggles. You believed in their potential, saw the good in them, and hoped that one day they would become the person you always knew they could be. But with time, you started to see that they weren't willing to put in the work. They weren't willing to meet you halfway. No matter how much you gave, no matter how patient you were, they remained the same. And that's when it hit you. It wasn't about you. It never was. Their inability to grow, to change, wasn't a reflection of your worth. It was a reflection of their unwillingness to step up, to do the hard work required to make a relationship thrive. You could have been the most perfect person in the world, and it still wouldn't have mattered, because they were stuck. stuck in their own patterns, their own mindset, their own selfishness. You had waited so long, convincing yourself that if you just held on a little longer, things would shift. But now you see the truth, don't you? You see that they're not going to change. Not because they can't, but because they won't. They're comfortable where they are. They're comfortable taking from you without giving in return. They're comfortable knowing that no matter how little they give, you'll always be there, waiting, hoping, loving them through it all. And that's not fair to you. You've spent enough time waiting. You've given enough of your heart, your energy, your patience to someone who doesn't value it. And that's not your fault. It never was. You didn't fail because they didn't change. You didn't fail because the relationship didn't grow. The truth is, you did everything you could. You gave them every opportunity to step up, to be the person they promised to be. But they didn't take it. And that's on them, not on you. It's hard though, isn't it? Letting someone go, especially someone you've invested so much time and energy into. It feels like giving up, like admitting defeat. But here's the thing, letting go isn't giving up. Letting go is recognizing that you deserve more. It's acknowledging that no matter how much you've hoped, no matter how much you've waited, some people just aren't going to meet you where you are. And that's okay. It's not your job to fix them. It's not your job to keep waiting while they figure themselves out. You have your own journey, your own growth to focus on. Letting go isn't a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength. It's saying, I've done enough, I've given enough, and now I choose me. You don't have to carry their weight anymore. You don't have to be the one always bending, always sacrificing. You've been patient, but now it's time to choose yourself. It's time to reclaim the energy you've spent waiting for someone who may never change. It's time to let them go. Not because you didn't love them, not because you didn't care, but because you finally realized that you deserve better. You deserve someone who shows up for you, who meets you where you are, who values you in the way you've always valued them. You deserve a love that doesn't require you to wait endlessly for someone to become what you need. You deserve someone who is ready, right now, to be the partner you've been waiting for. You've been patient, and that patience is something to be proud of. It shows your heart, your loyalty, your belief in people. But now, it's time to recognize that patience has its limits. You can only wait so long before you start losing yourself in the process. And that's what's happening, isn't it? You've been so focused on them, on their journey, on their growth, that you've neglected your own. You've put your own needs, your own happiness, on the back burner, all because you were waiting for them to catch up. But what about you? What about your dreams, your goals, your happiness? You've spent so much time trying to help them become the person they need to be, that you've forgotten about your own growth. And that's not fair to you. You deserve more than that. You deserve to be in a relationship where both people are growing, both people are showing up for each other, both people are putting in the work. You deserve a love that is balanced, that is mutual, that doesn't require you to sacrifice yourself for the sake of someone else's potential. It's time to focus on yourself now. It's time to reclaim the energy you've spent on someone who didn't deserve it. It's time to let go of the ones who drained you, who made you question your worth, who took advantage of your kindness, your patience. Not everyone deserves access to your heart. Not everyone deserves a place in your life. And it's okay to walk away from those who don't. It's not cruel. It's not selfish. It's self-respect. You've been patient, but now you see it, don't you? You see that some people will never meet you where you are, You see that you can't force someone to grow, to change, to be the person you hoped they would become. You see that holding onto them is holding yourself back, and now you know it's time to let them go. Because the truth is, the longer you hold on, the more you lose yourself in the process. The longer you wait for them to catch up to you, the further you fall behind in your own life. It's not easy though, is it? Walking away. It feels like you're abandoning something that could have been great. It feels like you're giving up on someone you believed in. But here's what you need to understand. You're not giving up on them. You're choosing yourself. And that's not something to feel guilty about. That's something to be proud of. You're choosing your peace, your happiness, your well-being. And that's the most important thing you can do. You were patient, but now it's time to let them go. You've carried the weight for so long. The emotional burden, the mental strain, the constant feeling of having to be the stronger one, the more giving one, the one who has to sacrifice. You've been patient because that's who you are. You want to believe in the best in people. You want to believe that they will eventually rise to the occasion, that they'll see your worth and start giving back in the way you've always given to them. But now, it's time to release that weight. It's time to let go of the heaviness that has settled on your shoulders, the burden that you've been carrying for far too long. Walking away doesn't mean that you didn't care. It doesn't mean that you didn't try. In fact, you've probably tried harder than most would. You've given them more chances than they deserved. You've extended your hand, your heart, your energy, over and over again. But every time you've done so, you've received so little in return. Every time you hoped for change, you were met with the same behavior, the same lack of effort, the same emotional emptiness. And each time it chipped away at you, didn't it? Each time you gave and received nothing back, a part of you felt just a little more drained. But here's the thing. You don't have to keep carrying that weight. You don't have to keep holding on to the idea that if you just try a little harder, if you just wait a little longer, things will change. Because they won't. Not with this person, not in this situation. And that's a hard truth to accept. It's hard to admit that sometimes, no matter how much love, patience, or effort you pour into something, it just won't work. But that's not a reflection of your worth. It's not a reflection of your value. It's a reflection of their inability to meet you where you are. It's time to let go of the weight that's been pulling you down. You've been carrying it for so long that maybe you don't even realize how heavy it's become. But imagine, just for a moment, what it would feel like to release it. Imagine how much lighter you would feel if you let go of the expectations, the disappointments, the constant waiting for someone to become who you need them to be. Imagine the freedom that would come with no longer having to bend, to sacrifice, to hold on to something that is no longer serving you. You've been patient, and that patience is something to be proud of. It shows your strength, your loyalty, your capacity for love. But now that same strength will serve you in a different way. It will help you walk away. It will help you reclaim the parts of yourself that you've lost in this relationship. The parts of yourself that have been stifled and suppressed as you've tried to accommodate someone else's needs, someone else's growth, someone else's journey. But now it's time for your journey. It's time for you to focus on your own growth, your own happiness, your own future. You see, walking away isn't a loss. It's a gain. It's gaining back your freedom, your peace of mind, your sense of self. It's making room in your life for the people who truly deserve to be there. The people who will value you, who will give as much as they receive, who will support you just as much as you've supported them. When you let go of what's weighing you down, you create space for the things that will lift you up. You create space for love, for joy, for the kind of relationships that don't drain you, but instead nourish you, fulfill you, and help you become the best version of yourself. It's not selfish to let people go. It's not cruel to walk away from someone who has been taking more than they've been giving. It's self-respect. It's knowing that you deserve more than what you've been settling for. You deserve to be surrounded by people who see your worth, who appreciate your effort, who don't make you feel like you're always the one who has to give more, do more, be more. You deserve balance. You deserve reciprocity. You deserve relationships where you feel as valued as you've made them feel. You've been patient, but now it's time to claim your power back. For too long, you've given away pieces of yourself to people who didn't deserve them. You've let others dictate how you feel, how you think, how you view yourself. You've allowed their indifference, their lack of effort, to make you question your own value. But no more. It's time to reclaim those pieces of yourself. It's time to take back the power you've been giving away for so long. You are stronger than you know. You are more valuable than you realize. And now, it's time to stand in that strength, to stand in that value, and to no longer allow people to take advantage of your kindness, your patience, your love. You don't need to keep waiting for them to change. You don't need to keep hoping that they'll finally see your worth. Because the truth is, if they haven't seen it by now, they probably never will. And that's not a reflection of you. It's a reflection of them. Reclaiming your power means acknowledging that you are enough as you are. It means recognizing that you don't need to keep bending yourself to fit into someone else's life. You don't need to keep making yourself smaller to accommodate their shortcomings. You are enough, just as you are. And anyone who doesn't see that doesn't deserve a place in your life. It's as simple as that. You've given enough chances. You've waited long enough. Now it's time to take care of yourself. It's time to choose your own happiness, your own peace, your own well-being. Because if you don't, who will? You've been putting others first for so long that maybe you've forgotten what it feels like to put yourself first. But now is the time to remember. Now is the time to choose you. Letting people go isn't easy. It's one of the hardest things you'll ever have to do. Because when you let go, you're not just walking away from a person. You're walking away from the future you imagined with them, from the potential you saw in them. But here's the truth. Potential is just that, potential. It's not a guarantee. It's not something you can rely on. You can't keep waiting for someone to live up to the version of them you've created in your mind. You can't keep holding on to what might be, because in doing so, you're neglecting what is. And what is? It's a relationship that's draining you. It's a situation that's weighing you down. It's a dynamic that's holding you back from becoming the person you were meant to be. You've been patient, but now it's time to let go of the ones who have been holding you back. It's time to stop carrying their weight, their problems, their emotional baggage. It's time to stop making excuses for them, to stop justifying their behavior, to stop waiting for them to become the person you need them to be. Because the truth is, they may never become that person, and that's not something you need to keep hoping for. You deserve more. You deserve better. You deserve relationships that feel balanced, that feel equal, that don't leave you feeling like you're always the one giving more. You've spent so much time trying to help others grow, trying to lift them up, trying to support them through their struggles. But what about you? Who's supporting you? Who's lifting you up? Who's helping you grow? You've been putting everyone else's needs above your own for so long that maybe you've forgotten what it feels like to prioritize yourself. But now is the time to remember. Now is the time to take a step back and ask yourself, what do I need? What do I want? Because your needs, your desires, your happiness, they matter. They are just as important as anyone else's, and it's time to start honoring them. You've been patient, but now it's time to let go. It's time to release the ones who have been draining you, the ones who have made you question your worth, the ones who have taken more than they've given. It's time to let go of the past, to let go of the future you imagined with them, and to embrace the future that is waiting for you. The future where you are free, where you are happy, where you are no longer weighed down by the emotional baggage of others. When you let go, you create space. You create space for new opportunities, new relationships, new growth. You create space for the people who truly deserve to be in your life. The people who will value you, who will appreciate you, who will give just as much as they receive. When you let go of what's holding you back, you make room for what will propel you forward. It's not easy. It's not something that will happen overnight. Letting go is a process. It's a journey. But it's a journey worth taking, because on the other side of that journey is freedom. On the other side of that journey is peace. On the other side of that journey is the person you were always meant to be. The person who is no longer weighed down by the expectations, the disappointments, the emotional baggage of others. You've been patient, but now it's time to let go. It's time to choose yourself. It's time to put your own needs, your own happiness, your own well-being first. And when you do, you'll realize just how much lighter, how much freer, how much more at peace you feel.